have an attorney. If you have a court-appointed attorney, that's the same thing as having an attorney. So if you can't, you don't feel like you have the strength or the knowledge to fire your attorney, then you're not going to be able to use this document. Now, we can help you the strength to fire your attorney, but that's strictly up to you. We don't make those decisions for you, okay? But when you stand up, when you establish your status standing in your jurisdiction, and you're a man or a woman as you were intended to be, then this document will work. It will work good. But you have to remember also that we are dealing with individuals. We don't have a crystal ball. We're submitting this into many, many courts. Over 100 of them right now have this document. Many different judges, many different prosecutors are receiving this. Every one of them is going to react a little bit differently towards this document. Now, in the end, if you take the document far enough, you continue to stand, you don't submit, you will win with this document. But you may have to be prepared to take it farther than others, okay? Sometimes the minute the court receives this document, they just dismiss the whole thing and they don't want any part of it. And sometimes they don't. So we will teach you what to do with this document, what additional paperwork can go with it as it moves up the ladder until your case is dismissed. We're here for the long haul. We're not here just to show you the document and turn you loose and expect you to solve your problem. Okay? We're here to help you. So first of all, I'm going to start through the document. This document is made to be modified to your situation. So you have to put the name of the court, of your court, at the top of that. The other thing, this document is designed for people who are on the defense. When they are coming after you, you are on defense. And this helps put you on the offense. The best defense is the great offense. That's how you win. So that's what this document does. So we're going to start off with this particular document. It says in the first judicial district court for the county of, and you put your county's name there, the corporate name. State of, you put this corporate name of the state. So there's a big difference between state of Oregon and Oregon. Oregon is on the land. It's a jurisdiction. It's a geographical map. State of Oregon is a corporation. In fact, it is a private for-profit governmental services corporation. This document also works, in fact, it works even better in federal courts. So if you're in, like, the 9th District of the District of Columbia, the federal court is the 9th District, you would put that information at the top. Now, I recommend looking up the Dun & Bradstreet numbers of your county, your state, your court, because they're all private for-profit corporations. This helps to prove the fraud. So you're going to want to put your case numbers over here. If you have more than one case, just start listing them down. Now, you can see by this document that we're already calling out the fraud. A private registered legal business entity, a subsidiary corporation of the United States Corporation. calling out the fraud on that as well. An artificial entity created through fraud, an unlawful conversion of the natural name from the state of, that would be the state of your birth. So you put your birth state in there. The living man unlawfully convicted being involuntarily held as surety. That's what they're doing, is they're holding your flesh and blood, your body, as surety for the bond of your corporation. So you always need to appear in court as a man or a woman and do it by special appearance. So you write your first and your middle name with a semicolon of the family of and your last name. So I don't know how this document just all of a sudden got all screwed up in here, which is really strange. It wasn't that way even a few minutes ago. And who's writing on the screen? You see that, Dave?
Yes, I do see that somebody's writing on the screen.
Dealing with these courts, a thing called the rule of three applies to everything. So you'll go in and you'll say, all right, I don't want an attorney. I'm firing my attorney. I'm sui juris. And they'll say, okay, we'll let you fire your attorney and you're pro se. And you have to go back in and say, no, I'm not pro se. I'm sui juris. And they'll come back and they'll say, you're pro per, which means a professional in their persona, proper persona. Okay? And you want to say, no, I'm sui juris. Once you tell them 3 times, they pretty much have to allow you to be sui juris. The same goes for them. They can ask you anything 3 times. That's why in this document, throughout this document, I try and cover everything 3 times in 3 different ways to answer the rule of 3. Okay? So this document in its entirety is a living testimony in the form of an affidavit. Why do we put it as a living testimony? 1, because it's coming from a man or a woman. In the form of an affidavit that is unrebutted, an affidavit is a statement of truth. And when unrebutted, it becomes a judgment in the case. So they are betting you will not judgment your affidavit. Once your affidavit is judgmented, it becomes very powerful. Okay? It's a challenge of your rights, status, standing, and jurisdiction. Why do we challenge jurisdiction? Because when we challenge jurisdiction, there's no statute of limitations on jurisdiction. You can challenge it at any time. And when you challenge jurisdiction, a court can even determine its own jurisdiction. And you're going to see as we go along that it is up to you to determine your jurisdiction. Let them know what that is, and it's their job to obey that. It is also a notice of discovery of fraud and impropriety. See, the same thing goes for fraud. Once fraud is recognized and learned, it must be vitiated. Everything is voided from the beginning. Therefore, this is also an effect. It is designed to dismiss the case, to make you whole. It's also a notice of demand for remedy and a claim for compensation. Now, you may have to follow up with that after the fact, but we're letting them know. We're putting them on notice so we can charge them with crimes and we can charge them for compensation. Okay. We always notice the principal is notice to agent. Notice to agent is notice to principal. Why do we do that? Because if we give it to a court clerk, it's the same as giving it to a judge. If we give it to a CPS worker, it's the same as giving it to the agency. If we give it to a police officer, it's the same as giving it to the President of the United States. They are all government, or supposed to be. They're really not. privately held for-profit businesses. So it's hard for me to even say that with a straight face. Okay. I hereby pray to God for relief. Why do we pray to God? Most attorneys, you'll notice, pray to the courts. We don't pray to the courts. The courts are our public servants. It's a place where we go for justice. We pray to our God, and we command the administrator as a public servant of we the people to read this thoroughly, completely, and with comprehension. This document is of a very serious nature and is not frivolous. So we're actually, right off the bat, becoming the boss, talking to our employees, our public servants, giving them an order to read it with comprehension, and read it completely. And we're telling them that it's serious and not frivolous. Why? Because if they don't do their job that we tell them to do, we might have to fire them. And so it is serious. Now, this next paragraph is probably the most important paragraph in the whole thing. And it says there will be no presumptions or assumptions, no tacit agreements, no waiver of rights, no hearsay, no lawyering or adjournment from the bench. Why is that the most important thing? First of all admiralty law is based off of presumptions. They're going to presume and get your tacit agreement that you're a citizen, a person, and a resident right off the bat. Then they have jurisdiction and they can move forward. Then they assume that you've done something, that you were a drug dealer when you're not, or you've been taking drugs when you didn't, or you were drunk when you weren't, or you're driving down the road in a motor vehicle when you were merely traveling in your automobile, okay, or you beat your kid when you did. There will be no waiver of rights. That means to tell them you have rights. Now, do citizens have rights? They have civil rights. They have privileges. But only men and women have unalienable rights. Only American state nationals. What is an American state national? It's an Oregonian, a Texan, a Floridian, a Wisconsin. That is what an American state national is. It is someone who created government, not a citizen who was created by government. There will be no hearsay. Why is hearsay such an important word in the law? Why? Because everything they're doing to you is basically hearsay. Did they have a first-hand witness who will swear under the oath, under the penalty of perjury, that you did what they're claiming you did? 99 out of 100 times, they will not have a first-hand witness. And they will definitely not have a cooperating witness. So therefore, they're basing their entire case off hearsay. Even a police officer or a CPS worker who shows up your door and then testifies in court that you beat your kid, they didn't see it happen. Therefore, it's hearsay. Okay? They did not see it happen. They were not a first-hand witness. There will be no lawyering or adjournment from the bench. When you say that, what you're doing is you're telling the administrator that it is not up to him to feed the prosecution legal advice or remove your evidence or remove your witnesses. You're there to defend yourself. You have the right to all your witnesses and all your evidence and all your defense. That's called due process of law. So they can't just willy-nilly make random decisions that they're not going to hear this or that if you feel it's important. And that's what that line means. I am asking only for truth, facts, honor, and fair justice. Isn't that what we all want? We just want the truth. We want the facts. We want to live with honor, and we want fair justice. You see, they have a motto that says, no fact or truth shall be tried in court. move along in the court in the proper manner. The first thing we have to do is stand upon our right of self-determination. It is the foundational stone of all human rights. It allows us to determine our status, standing in our jurisdiction, not them. Then we invoke our right of redress of grievances. Why is that? That's because we have a right to be heard. We have a right for them to listen, okay? And we have a right to say things and bring up facts that they're doing wrong without retribution or punishment, as long as we stand firmly upon that right of redress of grievances. I hereby stand as a belligerent claimant upon these rights as required. Wow. Most people are telling you to be nice, to be peaceful. I'm telling you to be nice and be peaceful. The word belligerent does not mean to be rude. What belligerent means is to stand proud, to stand firm, to not give in, to make yourself known, to be a man or a woman. A mama grizzly is belligerent, okay? Especially when she's defending her cubs. So that's what we need to be. The Supreme Court says that the rights of life and personal liberty are the natural rights of men. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. What does that mean? Governments are instituted among men. That means we, the people, put government in place to provide us with certain governmental services, and one of those services is to secure our rights. So why are we letting them take our rights, our rights, our liberty away? They're supposed to secure these rights for us on our behalf. The individual rights guaranteed by our Constitution and treaties cannot be compromised or ignored by our government or by its courts. We need to bring that fact up in our courts. They cannot ignore our constitutional rights and our treaties. Now, they're going to if you're a citizen, because if you're a citizen, you're not a party to it. You're a subservient slave, a citizen, a person, a resident. You are not a party. Men and women are parties. We, the people, are parties. American state nationals are the parties. We're the ones who founded government. The U.S. system was created by government. Judge James Alderfee ruled that the privilege against self-discrimination is neither accorded to the passive resistant nor to the person who is ignorant of his rights. So you have to know your rights. You have to know where they came from. You have to know where they're written down. You have to know how to bring them up. You can't be indifferent thereto. It is a fighting clause. Its benefits can be retained only by sustained combat. Now, here's an important line. It cannot be claimed by an attorney or solicitor. When you hire an attorney or you have an attorney who supposedly represents you, you are declared a ward of the state or a ward of the court. You are incompetent, unable to speak for yourself. So you're going to tell me that an attorney who spends a couple of hours with you knows your situation, knows what happened better than you do? No, they do not. In fact, they've sworn an oath to protect and uphold the court, crown, and other members of the bar. They have not sworn an oath to protect and uphold your rights or your interests. It is valid only when insisted upon by belligerent claimant in person. Okay, there's multiple cases that say that, and I listed this. Now, I'm going to skip some of this just for the sake of time, because what we're doing is we're just hammering that home to them. Okay, we want to make sure they know what we're talking about. The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. And that's the second century, is stand up. If we want to change this world and stop them from taking it, our neighbors' kids or our kids or ruling over us, we have to stand up. The presumption of liberty, rights we've retained for ourselves, freedom lies in everyone's heart, but it must be more than just lies there. Just impose on them. Okay, now, I bring up a couple of things that, I'm not a big fan of the United Nations, but I am a big fan, I've said this before, of their Human Rights Department, because they're bringing it forward into the world stage, and it's our governments that are ignoring them. So, I do an excerpt from the preamble of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and I put the preamble for the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. Why? Because these are treaties. These are treaties the United States has signed. In fact, 174 countries have signed these treaties. Treaty is supreme law. Our constitutions and our treaties are supreme law. All of our state constitutions and our federal constitutions, and any treaties. Superior law is God's law. So I also use God's law throughout this document. By the grace of God Almighty and through the supremacy clause of the Constitution and the below-listed treaties of supreme law, it is I alone who shall determine my status, standing, honor, and jurisdiction. Supreme law of the land, treaties, and constitutions. Judges in every state are bound thereby. Now, here's part of the problem. Are they a real judge? Is this an Article 1 or an Article 3 court? No. They're administrative courts. They are lesser courts. They are private, for-profit businesses. And if we have to, sometimes we have to walk this forward to a higher court, to an Article 1 or an Article 3 court. Now, a lot of these lower courts, these judges see this document, and they go, oh my gosh, these guys know what they're talking about. They could sue me. They could put me in jail for criminal charges, and they're going to dismiss the case based on that. Now, some of them are going to play poker and bet that you don't know how to proceed farther than this, that this is just a card you're playing in your hand. But we can help you with that. We can help you take all the way up and as far as it needs to go until somebody listens. Because like I said at the beginning, we're dealing with individuals. We don't have crystal balls. We don't know how each individual is going to react. We don't know what poker hand they're trying to play. Okay? I hereby invoke and stand upon all my natural rights given by my God, which are written in the documents listed below. This is just a partial list of documents that your rights that you have are listed in. So there's various rights listed all the way through all of these documents. And there's more. There's many more. I could have went on for a couple of pages. So what does this tell you? It tells you that you have a lot of rights that you don't even know about. You don't know where they came from. You don't know where they're written down, and you're not standing upon them. If you stood upon them and you know what to say, then these guys can't bother you. Okay? In fact, once you show them your proper papers, they're not even allowed to speak to you anymore. You have limited diplomatic immunity. So this next paragraph says, I hereby and forever stand firm upon these natural rights, giving the free man of God, one of we the people, the state national, limited diplomatic immunity as per the Geneva Convention, in that he has done no harm to another. If you have unknowingly harmed another, let that person come forward, that living man, woman, or child come forward, under oath, under the penalty of perjury, and then you can ask for repentance, seek forgiveness, and make amends or rebut. See, that gives you the opportunity for justice. If somebody is actually claiming that you did something wrong to them, then they need to come forward. And that way it gives you a chance to defend yourself or make amends. Then I go through. The state didn't really create anything that is real and living. It was God who created me. It was God who endowed my parents with the ability to co-create with Him to bring me into this world and to raise me. The government public servants are trustees. I am the beneficiary. One of we, the people, creators of government. Now, what the Constitution has to say about our rights. And then I go in the Bill of Rights of the Constitution. I'm not going to read that all to you. You need to read it. You need to understand it. You need to know your rights. You need to know where they're written down, and you need to know to bring them up. One of the rights you have is no one has a greater right to their child than you do. Not the government, not CPS, not some family you don't know or never heard of. No one has a greater right to your child than you. So you need to stand up and demand that right and keep your kid under your arm. This is the public officer's contract, the Constitution. The Constitution is a compact, is a contract that was written and adopted by the state to hold the government to provide us with 19 essential governmental services and no more. That's what we have to understand, that contract, what that binds, who that is binding to. It is not bound to the citizen, other than Article 14, which created the United States citizen. Here I shall stand, rescinding all past contracts, agreements, or waiver of rights for cause of fraud. This is where if they've got you to sign something, and they all have, whether it's your mother signing your birth certificate, or you signing your child's birth certificate, or applying for a Social Security card, or a voter's ID, or a driver's license, or a protective order, or a TPR, you're going to rescind all of those contracts for cause of fraud. If you've signed a plea deal, anything, if you give any power of attorney to someone, you can rescind all of that for fraud. Why? Because there was no full and honest disclosure, no meeting of the minds. This is where your first middle is separated by a semicolon in your last name, because you're talking about the living man or woman. Hereby repudiate, revoke, and rescind any waiver I may have previously made of these rights, unknowingly, unwittingly, under duress, under coercion, forced upon me through fearful scare tactics, under lies, under any false assumptions or presumptions, or through any perceived tacit agreement. We talked a little last time about tacit agreement. Hopefully everybody understands what that is. It's simply, usually without you even knowing it, a police officer or a judge gets your tacit agreement of you being a citizen, a person, or a resident within the first 60 seconds in a courtroom or walking up to your window of your car. Or by any signature which may have been used by a fictional corporate officer. That's you. That's you being a fictional officer of your corporation, that entity that was created upon your birth through fraud, that was registered by your all-caps name as a vessel lost at sea or a transmitting utility created by government and recorded as human resources and used as human capital by an investment bond or note created in a dog Latin gloss and name. That's your all caps name. Now, the Department of Human Resources of your state registers you, bonds you, insures you as human capital. You can look up executive orders that say this. There's many acts of Congress that say this. We're not making this stuff up. It's out there. This entity, this CUSUP number they're using, is registered through the United States Treasury bonds. It's the full faith and credit of the United States government. Treasury bonds are issued upon everyone's birth. They're bundled into an LEI and regulated by the SEC. And you can look those up in Fidelity or GMEI Utilities website. Now, we have the unlimited right to contracts. These contracts can be made with anyone. As a man or a woman, we can contract with anyone we want to contract with. We just need to make sure that that contract is fair, honest, has full disclosure, and it meets the 8 elements of the contract, which is listed later on in this document. I'm going to skip a lot of this stuff in here. I expect you guys to read this over and over and over and over so that you know it. Okay? They cannot take away anyone's right to contract. A right of contract is a property right. Okay? But we can rescind the contract that they have given us that they did not give us full and honest disclosure of. And they lie about everything. Everything. They just say, oh, you just need to take this drug test. You just need to pass this competency hearing. You just need to do this or that, and then we'll return your kid. And then 18 months goes by and they're TPRing you, even though you did everything you were supposed to do. They don't care. It's not in their best interest to give your child back to you. They're a for-profit business. They're not going to give their product away. And that's what they're doing. Now, if 2 or more come to your door, if a CPS agent comes with a police officer or 2, that is a conspiracy against your rights. Okay? It's under Title 18, Section 241, and it is a felony. And they can be fined or imprisoned. What they are doing is they're operating under the color of law to deprive you of your rights. The Supreme Court of the United States says rules, codes, statutes, ordinances are not law. They are not law. Think about that one for just a minute. All these things they're telling you are law are not law. They are corporate bylaws. Therefore, employees of the corporation to follow. Citizens. Citizen is a employee of the corporation. A citizen, person, and resident are 3 things you do not want to be, or you will be held accountable to every little rule, code, statute, and ordinance that they can make up or dream up. You know, they pass. There's millions of laws on the books. You're a criminal before you even get out of bed in the morning. Why should you obey those? If you walk into McDonald's to buy a hamburger, do you have to follow all the same rules that a McDonald's employee has to follow? No. But as a citizen, they're making you do that. See? The Supreme Court has warned, because of what appear to be lawful commands on the surface, many citizens, because of their respect for what appears to be law, are cunningly coerced into waiving their rights to do things. And what a powerful case law that was. Okay? U.S. versus Meeker. Very powerful case law stating that you are cunningly coerced due to your own ignorance are in jail, it's because we consented to put ourselves there. I mean, like it or not, if they took your kids, it's because you consented to let them take your kids. So you have to learn to stop consenting, to stand up, to stand belligerently upon your rights. Only a righteous and lawful living man or woman can have standing. So here we're challenging standing. See, they like to say all persons are equal in the law. Rich or poor, black or white, it doesn't matter. They're all equal. Well, that's because they're treating you all as dead entities. Okay? Dead entities. You're all dead. When a living man or woman walks in the courtroom, they're the only ones withstanding. And I know I'm going to go through this much faster as we go deeper into it because a lot of it is repeat. So don't be scared that it's 90 pages and we're on page 17, okay, because we don't have to go through all 90 pages for you to understand it. Now, I expect you to, because if you stand up in court and you're questioning on this document, you better know what it says, okay? All government corporations, agencies, agents, officers, and every level of government, every state, county, municipality, and in every capacity must obey the Constitution and these treaties if they're brought forward into life. For this sunlight is the best disinfectant. In Genesis 2:7, and the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils and breath of life, and man became a living soul. That is what we are. We are living souls. Our body is going to get buried. It's going to return to dust. But when we walk into the courtroom, we walk in alive as a living soul, somebody competent, somebody who can stand and have standing. Now we're going to challenge status. What is status? Status is, are you a citizen, person, or a resident? Or are you a we the people? Are you a state national? It is your estate, the estates of your fathers and grandfathers. You are the holder in due course, the rightful beneficiary. So it's your job to command the administrator as a fiduciary to settle and dismiss this matter. All of they are is bankers. A court is a bank, a judge is a banker, a court is a bank teller. If you're indicted, that's known as a true bill. If you can't pay the bill, you're brought up on charges. If you can't pay the charges, they're holding your body as surety for the bond. If you can't pay the bond, they're going to collect from your Social Security trust, your birth bonds. Everything is a banking term in the courtroom. Understand that. They're nothing but banks. It's exactly the same as walking into Wells Fargo and standing in front of the bank branch manager. Okay? Now, here it says, I have previously repudiated my citizenship via affidavit to the President of the United States, the Secretary of State, and the Attorney General of the United States, as well as to the Attorney General of the state wherein I was born. This is something I've done, many people have done, and it's something I encourage you to do. The United States Code says you must do it to the Secretary of State of the United States. That's all it says. You need to send an affidavit to the Secretary of State repudiating. I have another document, another affidavit that is a repudiation. It's the one I use, and I send it every time there's a new regime change. Every time there's a new president, a new Secretary of State, a new Attorney General, I send them another one. Why do I do that? Because I want them to know why I'm making this decision. This is an important decision and why I'm making it. Because they have corrupted and usurped this government that we love, this government of the United States of America. And because they've usurped it, we either need to take it back or we need to not be part of it. Again, I am not a U.S. citizen, but I am a state national as described in the United States Code, Section 8, Section 1101A21, with limited diplomatic immunity as one who created government as per the Geneva Convention. When you're a state national, you have limited diplomatic immunity. What does the word limited mean? It means if you don't injure someone else or their property, then you have diplomatic immunity to the laws, statutes of this United States. As long as you don't injure someone else or their property, you are a non-resident alien to the District of Columbia or to the International Monetary Fund. A citizen of the United States is a civilly dead entity operating as a co-trustee and co-beneficiary of the Public Charitable Trust, the QB Trust of the United States, Inc., under the 14th Amendment, which upholds the debt of the USA and USC. You are a debtor as a citizen. You are a creditor as an American state national. Learn the advantages and the disadvantages. As a citizen, you have privileges. You can collect welfare. You can get housing or a free phone. Okay? As an American state national, you stand on your own. You go out, you work, you earn a living, and you're free. And I'd rather be free than be beholden to government. Because being beholden to government comes at a very, very steep price, like the loss of your children, like being thrown in prison, like having to obey every little tiny rule that they can come up with. Laws rise at the whim of a politician. Okay? The defendant is charged above described as a dead enemy. That means your all caps name at the top of this document. And therefore is a debtor. It doesn't have its own blood, sweat, and tears, so it's incapable to earn money. So it's incapable is remedy. Profit. I said I'm on this ground, which I suppose to be self-evident, that the earth belongs in you, brought to the living, that the dead have neither powers nor rights over it. That was a letter from Thomas Jefferson to James Madison criticizing the new Constitution. Why does that? Because it says the new Constitution, we've even had another one since then. The Constitution usurped the Articles of Confederation. Okay? That was the original Constitution for the United States. It's called the Articles of Confederation. Why the man have awakened to the fact that whose eye, the living man, whose blood, sweat, and tears of his labor, the man, has been fraudulently held as a surety and as the debtor, when in reality it is I, the true holder in due course, and the creditor. So you're waking them up. You're saying, look, you've got this debtor, this citizen over here, and I'm the man, I'm alive, and I'm the creditor over here. It is my credit that gave our government full faith and credit in the United States. I would like to remind you that the act of either remaining a U.S. citizen or becoming one is voluntary. It's a voluntary revocable act according to the U.S. Supreme Court in the case of the United States versus Kirchhoff. All citizenship is a product of intent and domicile, and it is never my intent to be a U.S. citizen. I may, over my lifetime, have mistakenly, without knowing it, checked the little box on some form that said I'm a U.S. citizen, or filed a 1040. That doesn't mean I am. In fact, the Supreme Court says I haven't gone through the steps necessary to even become a citizen. Unless you're from another country and you went through the naturalization process, you're not a U.S. citizen. They are, but you're not. You're a state national. If you run for public office in that state, while you are holding public office, you are a state citizen. You need to understand the different statuses in the United States and be the one you're supposed to be. not the one they presume you to be. Now we challenge jurisdiction. This is something many people do not understand. But in Genesis 1:26 through 28, God gave mankind dominion over 3 jurisdictions: the land, the air, and the water, and everything therein. That became the origin of law. Land, air, and water is law. Land is common law. Air is ecclesiastical law. Water is admiralty law. The United States government, or the United States of America, was founded on common law, and it became, with its incorporation, admiralty. And for a time there, they used both, and now they are pretty much all admiralty law. The common law exists within us as the people. I know this might be confusing to some, but it is very important to learn this. The first 3 testamentary trusts set aside the jurisdiction of the land, the air, and the water. That's a great way to understand the true meaning of the word jurisdiction, is to understand how it was set aside. Okay? And this explains it thoroughly. Definition of jurisdiction. Juris means law or right, law. Diction means words. The words you use determine in which of the 3 jurisdictions you stand. You see, we are not well educated through the government public schools and its public propaganda educational system. We learn only what they want us to learn. And because the overwhelmingly vast majority of government leaders are bar association members, attorneys, and lawyers, then how come we're not taught the language and jurisdiction differences of law? We should be taught that in 7th, 8th, 9th grade. We should have basic law classes in high school. Why? Because without a basic knowledge, we can't get by in this world. We're taken advantage of. We're taxed. We're taxed every time we're going in the courtroom. If you don't believe me that the courts are banks, go sit in a traffic court for 4 or 5 hours. And every time somebody walks up before the judge and he's fined $300, $190, $975, $1,150, just write those amounts down on a piece of paper and add up how much that bank collects in tax and in profit in a 4-hour period of time. I did that in a small town named Redmond, Oregon, and I sat there for 4 hours and I wrote it all down, and it was over $30,000 that court collected in 4 hours. Pretty good gig to get it, okay? So, is this fraud? It's constructed fraud, and it's definitely not full and honest disclosure of the facts. So what we're doing is we're calling out the fraud. We're calling out the language of jurisdiction. We're using God's superior law. Treaties and constitutions are supreme law. The Word of God is superior law. And we're using that in our documents to call out the fraud of their statutes. Ephesians 6:12, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Almost every member of Congress and the Senate and every member of our judiciary are bar association members. That is where the true war is in this country. It is with the bar association. Governments have no jurisdiction over man. Governments have jurisdiction only over artificial entities and over its own employees. Inasmuch as every government is an artificial person, an abstraction, and a creature of the mind only with other artificial persons, the imaginary, having neither actuality nor substance, is foreclosed from creating and attaining parity with the tangible. These court cases show over and over again what our true jurisdiction is, how we can set ourselves aside. Edwin, can you mute that? At the top of your page, there's a microphone. Mute your microphone.
Okay.
All right. The law requires proof of jurisdiction to appear on the record in all proceedings. So if they don't have jurisdiction over you, they cannot proceed. The case must be dismissed. Okay, they have to have jurisdiction over the person and the subject matter. They don't have jurisdiction over you if you're a man or a woman. The case must be dismissed. You want your kids back? I'm showing you right here exactly how to get your kids back. You want to not go to jail? Here's how you not go to jail. This document could be used in traffic court. It could be used to get your kids back. It could be used to stop you from going to prison. It could be used after you're in prison to get you out. It can be used in a number of different ways.
Stop.
Okay? I'm not going to continue on and read all 90 pages. I expect you guys to do that. Now, in here, you'll see that I use a book called The Doctrine and Covenants. It's a LDS book. And you're going to say, why do you use that? It's not law. Well, let me tell you something. It is law because it has been published for more than 150 years. There is hundreds and tens of millions of copies of it out there, if not hundreds of millions of copies. And it hasn't been rebutted. Therefore, it is published law. Anything you publish for more than 21 days becomes a fact upon the record. And the reason I use it is because its words clearly state the differences between the law of the land and it being constitutional and man's laws, which cometh of evil. What do you think the law is? In American Jurist 2, Section 177, it says the general misconception is that any statute passed by a legislator bearing the appearance of law constitutes the law of the land. Simply not true. The U.S. Constitution is the law of the land, and any statute to be valid must be in agreement with it, or it is not. It is held as invalid. It's void. It's void from the beginning. What does that mean? Does that mean that they make a statute that says the CPS can come in and take your kids under Title IV, that that's a law? Show me in the Constitution where it's a law. No, it's a voided law. So can they do that? No, they can't. Especially since they're not even a government agency. They are contracted. They are a private for-profit entity that is contracted. I mean, we got to stand up, people. A void act cannot be consistent with a valid one. An unconstitutional law cannot operate to supersede any existing valid law. Okay? Over and over and over again through here, I tell you that these statutes are not law. And we use Supreme Court cases to show it. It is fraud. And the thing about fraud is this. At some point in time, it must be recognized. That means you could have been going through this process, and all of a sudden, you said, hey, wait a minute, I've learned something right here from this idiot in Oregon, and I've learned that this whole thing is fraud. So, starting today, you could change it immediately. You don't have to keep going through their process. You don't have to keep signing their agreements. All of their agreements are fraud. Once you learn them, they must be vitiated. They need to be voided from the beginning. This is a wonderful story about how we're caught up in this whole mess. QB Trust Act, the living story of the fraud. My mother, a woman, a living soul, created by God of flesh and blood, very much alive, went into a foundling hospital. Around 1912, all hospitals and churches in the United States were designated as foundling hospitals. The definition of the word foundling is a safe place to abandon a child. How's that make you feel? So she went into the foundling hospital believing she would get care, but instead was falsely declared indigent and a pauper. As part of foundling, being a safe place to abandon a child means you're indigent and pauper. You can't afford to take care of your baby. Then, having recently undergone the extreme duress of a major medical trauma known as childbirth, and under the influence of painkillers, anxious to go home to her comfortable bed and pursue a happy life with her beautiful newly born baby, she fills out some dubious and unexplained forms put before her. She's just told that it's just to give the baby a name and register it with the state. That's all she's told. No full and honest disclosure. So by the presumptive tacit agreement of government, she's coerced into signing them as an informant. If you look on your birth certificate line, you'll see the mother signed as an informant. The legal definition of the word informant is one who gives someone up to another. You're giving your baby away to the state to be registered, bonded, insured, titled. You're giving up the title to your child. Then they just send it home with you. And someday down the road, if they don't like the way you're taking care of it, if you're not keeping your house clean, or you put a bruise on it, or you don't send it to school, or you don't get it vaccinated, they can come into your house without any due process of law, no warrant, no nothing, and take your child, kidnap them, because they have title. They own them. You don't own them. So think about that for a little while. As a citizen, a person, a resident, by historical definitions are, citizen means city employee. Person is a dead legal entity or an office of person. And a resident is someone there temporarily to do business, which means you're in admiralty jurisdiction right from the get-go. And my innocent mother, thus failing to recognize the lifelong consequences of her action, as there was no full and honest disclosure or any meeting of the minds, which vitiates any contract, by the way. This form that my mother signed was fraudulently used to create a document of title, a bond, a insured security. It was sent to the Department of Human Resources, registered as human capital. Slavery, jointly by the foundling hospital and by the state. This action created a copyright infringement and unlawful conversion of the given Christian-born name, converted to birth names, and bonded. There are tax custody numbers attached to the QB Trust, a look-alike, sound-alike, constructive fraud. In other words, does David Lester Straight, all caps, sound like David Lester Straight, the man? Yes, it does. That's how they created this fraud. They made it look like you and sound like you, and it's not you. It's an entity, an office of. This section is where you put the information off your birth certificate, your birth record. You record the date and time. Why? Because this shows that you were born on one date and your entity was created on another date. Therefore, how could they be one and the same? This can be used in court along with your birth certificate to prove them wrong. Okay? Like I said, I am going to skip through this some just for the sake of time, and you guys probably are going to appreciate that. This whole next section talks about the Cesta QV trusts that were created with your birth, the public trusts. Each and every man and woman has the absolute right to refute and reject these false presumptions as the holder of their own title. Given the private secret trust of the private central banks are created on false presumptions. When a man or woman makes clear their lie-born record and claim over their own name, body, mind, and soul, any such trust based on such false presumptions ceases to have property and property rights. Any administrator or executor that refuses to immediately dissolve the SQV trust upon a person establishing their status and competency is guilty of fraud and fundamental breach of their fiduciary duties, requiring their immediate removal and punishment. Of course, you have it. Okay. Hey, Beth, can you mute? So now come to your living. Intention to defraud or injure you anyway. If it is, if they don't dare answer that question, I can tell you that right now. If they do, then they're facing several felony charges. Okay. Now here comes your living testimony. This is you being a living soul and jurist, and not the person that they're treating you to be. And in this,
Dave, can you go over that? Dave, can you go over that last comment? I made a mistake and muted you out when I muted Beth. It jumped your screen down. Can you go over that comment again, please?
Which comment was that, Dave?
It was the last one you made where you said if they ignore this, if they answer this question, I guess you were giving one of the points where you catch them in fraud just a second ago.
Now, I couldn't hear. It's a question for the. It's a question for the prosecution. Is it truly your honest intention to defraud me or injure me in any way? Or is it your intent to conspire or deny me any basic God-given, guaranteed constitutional and international rights here? They cannot answer that question. If they answer that question, no, then the case should automatically get dismissed right here, right now. If they answer it yes, they should go jail. You could turn around and call the bailiff or the marshals in and have them arrested right there. Okay? If they answered yes to that question. It's a very question to ask the prosecution. Okay, this living testimony, you have to